This was Donald Trump in 2016.
And I'm afraid the election's going to be rigged. I have to be honest. Folks, the system is rigged. It's rigged, okay? And remember this, it's a rigged election.
Then he won, and then he decided it wasn't so rigged, of course. Well, now what's old is new again. President Trump says the midterm election is likely to be rigged, not by the Russians, but by Democrats working for Robert Mueller. In a tweet this morning, laying it out this way: the 13 angry Democrats, plus people who worked 8 years for Obama, working on the rigged Russia witch hunt, will be meddling with the midterm elections, especially now that Republicans, stay tough, are taking the lead in the polls. There was no collusion except by the Democrats. Got it? A fresh take on an old conspiracy. The deck is stacked against him, and they're all out to get him until they are not. Joining me right now, CNN political contributor, former mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter, and Doug Heye, CNN political commentator and former communications director for the RNC. Mayor Nutter, the president is questioning the legitimacy of the November elections coming up. It may not surprise you, but what impact does it have?
Well, Kate, this is just a continuation of his usual now paranoia about everything. It was not rigged in 2016, but he keeps talking about that. He's got that loop tape going in his head. All he's doing is trying to cast doubt and fear in the court of public opinion, distract attention away from the self-inflicted wounds on his own, having fired Mr. Comey, which then resulted in a special prosecutor, Mr. Mueller. It is absurd, and it's certainly an insult to his history and service to the country. It's absurd that Donald Trump would even let words out of his mouth suggesting that Mr. Mueller and his team are going to somehow interfere with elections. They're investigating the Russians who interfered with our elections on behalf of Donald Trump. That's what that probe is all about.
Doug, the strategy of kind of Trump versus Robert Mueller and trying to undermine the Russia investigation, that's been playing out, for a while now. But on that, Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, he made what I think is a pretty important admission when it comes to all of this over the weekend. Listen to this.
It is for public opinion because eventually the decision here is going to be impeach, not impeach. Members of Congress, Democrat and Republican, are going to be informed a lot by their constituents. So our jury is as it should be, is the American people.
So he's making no secret this is a political argument. He says it is for public opinion.
Yeah, it is. And look, I worked in the House of Representatives back when Bill Clinton went through his impeachment. Right. That was certainly a very political process. It's one I think a lot of Republicans regret. But we know that the Clinton White House also tried to, and the president himself, Peter Baker, had a great story in the New York Times today, kind of replaying everything that happened where Bill Clinton finally, in his own words, went after Ken Starr to discredit that investigation. It's part of the same playbook, obviously with more Trumpian language that casts aspersions everywhere, but ultimately goes back to that same central point, to discredit this investigation, because every time there's a new plea, every time there's a new indictment, he has to discredit it so that he can advance politically.
If that is the case, Mayor, how do you counter that?
Well, as I think it was John Adams said, facts are just stubborn things. And the number of people, as Doug mentioned, a number of people who have been indicted. There are other people who are cooperating with Mr. Mueller's probe. I don't know that Mr. Trump is going to be able to slip and slide out of this one as he has in the past. This is a much more serious situation involving international, virtually, espionage, with the Russians attacking our election, Mr. Trump or his son having Russians into Trump Tower, and a whole host of nefarious activities. And somehow he thinks he's going to poison, the jury pool, that being the people of the United States of America. Most folks are not going to buy that nonsense. People know what's going on. They know what he's doing. The American public's not stupid. And every day that he says something, tweets something, lies about something, just goes on to the pile that Mr. Mueller and his team will be looking at.
But Mayor, overall, if you're looking at there's been a lot of polling on this. Overall, the trend has become that more Americans are saying that the Mueller investigation should end, and more Americans are saying that it is unfair to President Trump. That's definitely clear. That definitely seems clear on partisan lines. And if he's just convincing Republicans of it, Is that already a win?
Well, he has whatever base he has. I don't necessarily know that it's growing by that much. But, we haven't heard, we've only heard one side of this because Mr. Trump is on a propaganda campaign and Mr. Mueller is on a serious probe. Let's see what the actual results are that come from a pretty wide-ranging series of events and activities. Let the American public hear the full story. At the moment, Mr. Mueller has both of his hands tied behind his back and just diligently goes about doing his work while the president goes on tweet storms every weekend virtually, seemingly having nothing else to do but attack people every weekend. We've actually pretty much become used to this, and somewhere in the Sunday, Monday neighborhood can anticipate a series of wild accusations. This week's new theory. He's got more theories than Carter's got liver pills. So, just let this thing play out.
That we will. Doug, the president is heading to Nashville today to hold a rally for Republican Senate candidate Marsha Blackburn. If he spends the whole time on stage railing against this, railing in this kind of basically essentially reading his tweet over and over again and railing against Bob Mueller, he might be helping himself. Is that helping Marsha Blackburn?
Yeah, we don't know yet. What we know is that Marsha Blackburn has campaigned very, very closely as a Trump ally. She did so in 2016 when she was running for re-election for the House, and she has not backed off him right now. I think tonight and the reaction to tonight will be perhaps the most important political event that we'll have this summer, because how the public reacts to this, whether you're talking about independent voters in Tennessee or just kind of the general population as a whole, how they react to that is going to tell every other Republican candidate how they campaign with or without Trump, especially in red states. In Tennessee, this is a state that Republicans usually win. They've got a centrist Democratic governor who's running.
That's why Democrats are looking at this so closely.
It's probably going to be a tight race.
Yeah.
But how Marsha Blackburn reacts and how the voters react to what Trump says tonight is going to be very telling, not just for her campaign, but other Republican campaigns.
Yeah, kind of the domino effect and ripple effect of what it looks like. Great to see you. Thanks so much, Doug.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Mayor. Thank you.